The first way you can set strong expectations is to take your time and evaluate what your expectations are. These will differ for every tutor, but here are the general ones you can consider. First one is response time. When can students expect to hear back from you? For my tutoring business, this is 24 hours. Number 2, your cancellation policy. How much notice do you expect from students if they have to cancel or reschedule a session? What happens if students fail to give you this much notice? Number 3, the expected frequency of lessons. Do you expect your students to commit to regular lessons with you? If so, how frequent are these? Number 4, keeping lessons to the scheduled time frame. Is it important to you that lessons don't frequently run over time? If so, create a plan for how you ensure this doesn't happen all the time. For example, enforcing this might involve asking your students if they have any questions 5 minutes prior to the end of the lesson, and just giving them a heads up at that point in time. Hey, we're almost out of time. Allowing lessons to run over time was one of my key errors in my early days of tutoring. One of my recent videos actually goes into depth about why I consider this to be one of the top 5 mistakes tutors often make. So if you'd like to learn more about my experiences navigating expectations and the mistakes I learned along the way, the link's just on the screen. Now, number 5, the parameters of your role. Assess exactly how you envision your relationship with your students. Are you happy for them to ask you questions that aren't strictly related to the subject you're tutoring, like questions about life advice or pursuing further study? Or would you prefer to limit this discourse to subject-specific content? As a personal opinion, I was personally labeled a life coach by many of my students, and I know that this is the case for many of my tutors and their students too. I find that this is a really great way for you to build those real, authentic human connections rather than just focusing on the subject at hand. Just food for thought. So once you've actually outlined these expectations of yours, it's time to communicate it to your students clearly. Ideally, you should be setting these expectations from the very first lesson with the student, just so that you set that standard for the rest of your time with them. But if you're already with students now that you haven't laid down those expectations with, it's still not too late. Having this in writing also ensures that your students have a place where they can go back to and refer back to the expectations if they need to. It can be intimidating to enforce your expectations, but just remember that you have outlined these expectations with the student previously, and so it's okay for you to enforce those expectations while still being friendly but being assertive at the same time. If you do need to have a conversation with your student where you need to enforce the boundaries, I definitely recommend you having a face-to-face session with them, because this will enable you to communicate more clearly than, say, for example, if it was via email. Why? Because that way you can clarify any uncertainty right there and then with your student. You might also find it helpful to occasionally remind your students of your expectations, just to keep them front of mind and to minimize the likelihood of your boundaries being breached. For instance, this might involve responding to an inquiry from a student to let them know that you've received their text or email and will get back to them within 24 hours, or whatever response time you've established. I hope you found this video helpful to help you confidently set and enforce your boundaries with your students. Let me know which part of this video you found most helpful in the comment section below so that I can expand on these points in the future. See you guys next time. Bye!